And we are back on the Denver Sports Betting Show, and it's Shamlocks. It's Bets in Denver, and we have just run through the 5 big games coming up this weekend. So let's kind of recap it, and then we'll get some big picture. So first game tonight, Friday night, Boise State UNLV. We both have UNLV plus the 4. Iowa State ASU. We're on opposite sides. You've got ASU minus the 1.5. I've got Iowa State plus the 1.5. Texas and Georgia, we are on opposite sides as well, too. You like the Longhorns minus 2.5. I'm on Georgia. I'm going to give myself the 3 because there are 3s out there. It's a minus 120. So I'm going to take the Dogs plus the 3. ACC title game, Clemson, SMU. We're both on the Tigers plus 2.5. Hoping for that outright win in our my future to cash. Big Ten title game. We are both on Penn State plus the 3.5 plus the 4. Wouldn't be surprised to see an outright winner there. So there we go. Got some agreement. Some we're going to go head to head on. It's going to be a lot of fun starting tonight. It's going to be like it's like March Madness. You get to all the talk then after the games are over of who's getting in, who's getting out, and all the talk is about the bubble. With those games. So there's our 5. All right. As we're going forward here, I want to give you one scenario and tell me what you think, how this plays out. So I took Georgia to be the number 1 seed at plus 5,000. I got that just 2 days ago. I see it now. It's down to plus 2,800. And I don't think it's that far-fetched because you look, if Penn State wins and Georgia wins, again, wouldn't be surprised to see either one of those happen. I'm picking them both. That parlay, moneyline parlay pays 4-1. But it's going to come down to those two between Georgia and Penn State for the number 1 seed. So you take a look at Georgia. They win the SEC. They beat Texas twice, one of them in Austin. They beat another playoff team in Tennessee. Out of conference, they beat a very good Georgia Tech team and could have beat the potential ACC champion in Clemson as well, too. Then you compare that to Penn State. Who did Penn State play out of conference? Well, they played Kent State. What do we know about Kent State? They're the worst team in football. They were 0-12. They beat Bowling Green. Congrats. They beat them by 7. They were losing at halftime. And then they did play West Virginia, who just fired their coach.
Yeah. I mean, I could see, and the committee we know the committee has an SEC bias. So, Georgia's definitely going to be the team. I mean, I don't see a way they put Penn State at number 1. There's no way the committee puts them at number 1.
They're not the number 1 team. No chance.
Yeah, and I feel like that's the argument they're going to make is that they're not the best team in the nation, Penn State. And that's why they won't be number 1. And then you'll see Georgia, you mentioned you got them plus 5,000, plus 2,800. FanDuel, they're all the way down to plus 1,600. So good value there. And if, like you said, the money line parlay is around plus 400, why would you not just place the bet for Georgia? The value is just so much better there.
It's all about the value there, where I could certainly see it happen. If I lose, big deal. I lose my pizza money, but if I win, I got plenty of pizzas. So I think for that price, and if I'm a voter, look at last year they put Alabama in over an undefeated Florida State team. So a little bit different circumstances with Florida State's QB going down, but I think there's a big difference between the 1 in the loss column versus a 0. If Penn State was undefeated, no chance. But hey, they did lose to Ohio State in the big game they have. They really haven't, right now their best win is Illinois versus what Georgia's done. So I think at that price, I'm definitely, like I said, I'm on the Dogs. And if you haven't taken it yet, I would still grab it plus 2,800, whatever you can find, best number you can find it at. I think there's value there.
And even though I'm on Texas, the value's there. I took it. The value's there.
It's a good hedge against possibly what could happen. So
yeah. And speaking of value, I'm looking at Alabama to miss the college football playoff at plus 300 because I think Clemson beats SMU and I think SMU gets in over Alabama. I just don't think you should be able to.
Here we go.
A team should be hurt by making their conference championship game when another team didn't because they lost. And it just doesn't really make sense. I know Alabama probably is the better team, But at the same time, how are you going to punish a team like SMU for getting all the way there and then losing and then putting them out of the playoff when they've been so good all year?
It's a no-win situation. You can make cases for both. You can make cases against both. That is the one thing now with the expanded field. It's not like last year with Florida State and Alabama where we're talking about only 4 teams. You've got 12 teams in. You had plenty of chances. I don't like the fact that, they got to sit at home and kind of backdoor their way in. But although they are already in the playoff as things stand now. And like I said, I am not an Alabama fan. I don't think they deserve to be in. But, hey, you did to yourself. You expanded this field. We got to find 12 teams somewhere. Somebody's got to get in. And you look at what Alabama's done, who they beat. And like I said, what's gone against SMU is, you look at the 2 toughest teams that they will have played are probably BYU, who they lost, and if they lose this game, Clemson, that they lost. Mm-hmm. So I look at it, yes, it's a championship game, but just take the schedule in totality. As much as it pains me to say it, I would still probably put Bama in. I think Bama's in no matter what. You can't. I just don't see these guys taking out Alabama. So with that said, give me your top. I can go first. You got it written down. I can go first if you got it.
I got it in no order if that's okay. Because I don't know what's gonna. Oh, I could have it in order too.
I've got an order. It's going to be wrong, but I'll give you my order. So,
all right.
Like I said, Georgia 1, Penn State 2, Iowa State 3, Clemson 4, Oregon 5, Texas 6, Notre Dame 7, Ohio State 8, Tennessee 9, Indiana 10, Alabama 11, UNLV 12.
And I got let's see.
Which is
I got Texas.
I'm probably the only person that's got that as my 12, and it'll probably be wrong, but I'm going down the record.
Yeah, I got Texas 1. I don't think even if UNLV wins, I don't think they're gonna take Boise out of the playoffs. So I'm gonna go ahead and put Boise there as number 12.
No, you're no way they put. But if you think if Boise loses, they're still in.
I don't know.
You've got Boise and you got Boise and SMU in. If they lose,
it's tough now that you say it that way. Okay, I'll put UNLV in over Boise. I got Texas. I got Penn State, Clemson, Arizona State, Notre Dame. Let's see. Oh wait, I didn't even say Georgia. Georgia number 5. I'm like looking through my. I'm just gonna go no rankings.
Okay.
Georgia, Notre Dame, Indiana, Ohio State, Tennessee, SMU, and UNLV. And I think, and there's the one match that we know is probably set is that Ohio State-Tennessee game. And I think Ohio State is just going to mop the floor with Tennessee. I don't think Tennessee really stands a chance versus them.
I agree there. We've got some really, really juicy matchups that part of me wants to see. They came out in the brackets this weekend, a Notre Dame Alabama game in South Bend to see Alabama go there in December would be awesome. Ohio State, Tennessee. There's just so many fun matchups. Part of me, I said after Michigan beat Ohio State last week was like, man, I miss the days where they're like, okay, Ohio State, you're out. They're done. That's what it cost them. Now it's sort of like, I texted jokingly. I said Ryan Day's going to be the only guy to get fired and win the national championship in the same year because he can't beat Michigan. So it's there's a lot of good things about the playoffs. Again, I like the fact that we're supposed to be able to get more teams in the with the chance. Some of these group of 5 teams, not to get 3-loss Alabama in here. And now it's going to go to 14. It's might even go to 16, which that kind of bums me out because how it takes away a little bit from some of these regular season losses that allows these teams to kind of hang around and hang in there.
And one thing I wanted to ask, do you think Miami gets any love for the committee? Lost to 9-3 Syracuse, lost to Georgia Tech, who just went to 8 overtimes with Georgia. Do you think the committee gives them any love? It seems like they've overvalued them all year. And like here, maybe we see a scenario where they're like get some votes to get in.
It's the talk is all those teams. It's Miami, it's Alabama, it's Ole Miss, South Carolina. I thought South Carolina, head to head isn't the end all be all, but it's got to mean something. And, that loss to Ole Miss, that loss to Alabama really hurt them. I think everybody's acknowledging that they got screwed by in that LSU game. But when you look at South Carolina, what's really going to be, they just beat Clemson. And if Clemson beats SMU, Clemson's in. And then how do you have, that's what I say, how, SMU, I know it's a little transitive property, but then you got, SMU is going to be in over South Carolina, who Clemson, they just beat Clemson. So again, it's a no. You can make cases for anybody, and there is no
Michigan.
Except Michigan. Except Michigan.
Yeah, where does Michigan fall in this after beating Ohio State?
They're in the NIT. They're in the NIT. They flipped with IU this year. IU's the football school, Michigan's the basketball school. So man, I cannot wait though. And then Sunday we're gonna see all these where everybody falls, but also get ready. Get out in front of these lines. I'm already stacking up my bet on teams versus my fade teams. I'll tell you what, I'm not betting on Ole Miss and whatever bowl game they're in, because Lane is going to say F this, and they're going to have players transferring. They're going to not even care about that game. So Ole Miss is a fade team for me. Florida is a play on team for me, the way they have been playing. So that's one thing we want to look at as these bowl matchups come out, because the lines will move quickly. So we want to make sure we jump on those as soon as they get posted.
And if you had to pick someone right now to win the national championship, who would it be?
Notre Dame.
That's my pick. That's my pick. I
year.
have on plus 800. I think the defense, I think, is just going to be what it comes down to. And I think they have the best defense in college football. And you see what they did to, I know Army and Navy are in the triple option. Their offense is one-dimensional, but you see how bad they beat those teams and shut them out. And you see like what they've done to teams all year. I mean, even like at Texas A&M, beating them at Kyle Field, holding them to like barely any points early on in the year, of course. But I think Notre Dame may be the best team here. That obviously people that lost to NIU, I think people are like kind of overvaluing that. They've been way better since then. They've been crushing teams, and I think no one's betting on them either. And that's what makes me like it even.
They've just kind of flown under the radar. Like I said, that NIU stain has not gone away, but that was 4 months ago when Riley Leonard was still just kind of playing his first games, and they have just really gelled. And I think Notre Dame too, if they can get that 5 or the 6 spot is huge, because if they can avoid, the Big Ten or the SEC, and then have, host a home game and then get an Arizona State or a Boise or something like that, and then they're into the semis, I still think there's the meat on the bone there for some futures. Texas probably still, Texas, Georgia, Notre Dame, Ohio State. I would take one of those 4 versus the field.
Yeah. I hope there's a bet that comes up for them 4 versus the field, so that I get like it even money.
Even money might be wishful thinking.
Yeah. Maybe so. Maybe a little promo from FanDuel or something.
We'll keep our eyes out for it. But again, it's great to be back with everyone. Enjoy the games this weekend. Make sure you follow Dylan on X at Bets in Denver. Follow me on Instagram at @sham_. And we are back on the Denver Sports Betting Show, brought to you by our friends at CD's Wings. And we are talking the SEC game here, and I want to get back to what I was talking about with Georgia here. Like I said, going into that game, they made a big deal last week about, Georgia obviously giving up the points against UMass, looked a little unfocused. And then in the game they really probably could have lost against Georgia Tech. But, all credit goes to Buster Faulkner, who had a great game plan for Georgia Tech. Run the football, controlled the ball. He'll be a hot name as a head coach, or maybe even a big time as an OC position. But they talked about it in the game as how he was on the staff with Kirby, and he knows how to beat the dogs. And that's why I was on Georgia Tech getting the points. But I think that, we already saw Georgia go into Texas and beat them pretty badly in Austin. And you mentioned Arch Manning maybe coming in. That game last week for Texas against A&M, I was surprised to see how well they handled that Texas A&M defensive line. But Ewers still doesn't. I mean, he's still not 100%. Doesn't look right. Had the pick 6. We know Beck has made Plenty of mistakes here too, throwing some interceptions. And the concern for me is the drops of some of these Georgia receivers. We saw it, the drops in the Georgia Tech game. Georgia leads the nation in drops, which is pretty remarkable to say. But I just think that Georgia, this is a game that they had it all there to play for last year against Bama, and it got away from them. And I think, like you said, Kirby finds a way in these spots to motivate his guys. And I think they are obviously not going to be intimidated by Texas. And I think in what could be a lower scoring game, those 3 points are going to be critical. It's Sark on the other sideline. It's not Saban. Not to say that Sark's not a great coach, but I do think that while Georgia has not looked right, they had the extra day playing on Friday. So give me. I'm going to trust Kirby, trust Georgia. I'm never going to feel stupid betting on Georgia and losing in this spot. So give me Georgia plus the 3. I'm going to go against it there.
And you shouldn't feel stupid for betting on Georgia. But the reason I bet on Texas most is the defense, Georgia's defense. I mean, their hallmark over the past few years, trending downward over the last 3 games, allowed an average of 38 points, gave up 260 yards rushing to Georgia Tech. I mean, and I think that's a huge concern against a Texas team that excels at extending the run game with screens, quick passes, RPOs. And I think, like you mentioned, especially if Quinn Ewers isn't healthy, we're going to see them go to that more. So I think that may actually even benefit Texas.
We will see. That is the afternoon game, solo game on Saturday afternoon. Let's go to the primetime ACC, Clemson, SMU. And all I've heard anybody talk about in this game is we already said it, is if SMU loses, are they in? And that has been the story of this game rather than SMU wins, they're the ACC championship, they're in, there's nothing to think about. It's all if they will lose, if they will win, what happens, what's happening there. It's beat Clemson, you're in. Clemson wins, they know they're in. I think a lot of that noise is going to play a factor with SMU and how focused they are of actually on this game, getting it done. And then you look at Clemson, who had just lost that game to South Carolina. They thought they were done. And now, thanks to Syracuse and Coach Brown, winners get washed. They're back in it, and you win, and you're in. And Clemson was my pick to win the ACC to start the year. I've still got that plus 270 ticket. And I'm not going to hedge. I'm going to go with Dabo. I'm going to go with Clemson. With this game in Charlotte, Clemson's home away from home. They're 7-0 in Charlotte, and I think that Clemson get this done. And for SMU, they just haven't seen dudes like what Clemson has. They've gone through they've got, in the ACC, they didn't play Miami, they didn't play Clemson, they didn't play Georgia Tech, they didn't play Syracuse. I mean, they really won the schedule lottery, and I think this is just a big step up for them. And I'm going to take Clemson. I don't think we're going to get the 3, but I'm taking the 2.5 with the Tigers.
I'm taking Clemson here too. I think they went outright. I've bet on SMU 4 times this year. Each 4 times they have not covered the spread. I've been waiting for a spot to bet against them, and I think this is a spot. I think the defense is going to be an X factor. Like you said, they haven't faced guys like this. They're dominant up front. Their athleticism and physicality, I think, is really going to disrupt SMU's offensive attack. And like you said, they haven't faced a defense this caliber all season. And with this game in Charlotte, feels like a home field advantage for Clemson. And, like you said, Dabo Swinney teams thrived in this environment. SMU's offense is dynamic, but Clemson's defense experienced in big games. And I think they want to play spoiler more than anything and make the playoffs. So, I mean, I like Clemson here.
Definitely.
That's my favorite bet of all the games, actually.
And too, Clemson was leading that game the entire way against South Carolina, who's everybody's talking about getting in, and they had that scramble on 3rd and 14, which is still driving me nuts because I had Clemson there. But then Clemson came right down the field, was in field goal range, and the tip ball gets intercepted. So yeah, I really like Clemson here. I think I feel for SMU. I'm torn because I want them to get into this playoff, but again, winning their end, we'll see what happens if they lose. But we're both on Clemson on the agree there. Let's go to the Big Ten title game. We've got Oregon and Penn State. I want to get your opinion first, and then I'm going to give you my thoughts.
Oh, this one's tough. Oregon coming into this game undefeated, 12-0. They've been dominant and, led by quarterback Dylan Gabriel and running back Jordan James. But I still haven't seen anything super impressive with Dylan Gabriel, just the fact that he's surrounded by all these amazing weapons. But I think Penn State is probably more physical than you could say they played Ohio State and they're a physical team, but I don't think Ohio State's physicality is anywhere near Penn State's. And I think that if Drew Aller can get going and Penn State's defense stays stout, I think they can upset this Oregon team. But I like them plus 3.5 here, regardless, even if they don't win. I think they cover the spread here. I think this game remains close, and it's a field goal game the whole game.
Well, I'm with you. I was going to lead this off by saying I'm going to say what I haven't heard anybody else say, and it's I like Penn State.
Everyone's on Oregon.
You go up to a bar and you go 9 out of 10 guys, they're all going to pick Oregon. And yeah, a lot of what you said on Penn State rings true. First off, is anybody even going to be at this game? Because I saw tickets are going for as cheap as $16. Wow. And I'll tell you, if you're a Ducks fan, Eugene to Indianapolis isn't like the easiest trip to make. And to spend that money to get out, to go to Indy in some 30-degree weather. I think all these fans are ready to go to Pasadena in some sun and 70-degree weather on New Year's. So for starters, I think Penn State, it'll be a big time advantage for the Penn State crowd because you can at least make the drive from Happy Valley. And so that's for starters. And I know it's James Franklin. And I know everybody likes to pile on James Franklin, and for good reason, because in these big games, he never shows up. He beats up. He's the bully on the weak teams. But you said it, like, let's not act like Oregon is infallible. Yes, they are undefeated, and credit them for getting there. But they've really played, two good offenses this year. And we saw the Ohio State game. We saw what that offense looked like against Michigan. Michigan defense more comparable to a Penn State defense, and they were bottled up versus the Ohio State defense, where they, really kind of lost until Will Howard decided to take a seat on his ass. So, and then the Boise game, where Boise was kind of in control of that game, and they won on a walk-off field goal, and those were both at home too. So, and again, something about Lanning too, which I want to say too. Oh, and the Wisconsin game. Wisconsin, they just struggled in that game going on the road against another physical team. So Lanning, he's a guy that just makes some head scratcher decisions sometimes. He goes for two at times when you're like, why is he going for two there? Or he's going for some of these fourth downs and rolls the dice. But I don't think he's a smart guy. And I think part of him looking big picture, I think Oregon is better off path-wise at the 5 than the 1. So playing into that, let's say you lose this game, you go to the 5 seed, you get UNLV, then maybe Clemson, or you get the Big 12 winner and then a Boise. He could, you lose a loss, never necessarily a bad thing. Maybe it gets his team refocused. So I know I'm thinking outside the box, little conspiracy theory, but it's a true point. And I just think, Penn State and Franklin, if he's up, it means more to Penn State to win the Big Ten than Oregon doesn't really care about winning the Big Ten.
I think they're hungry. Yeah.
And Franklin, if he wants to get this fan base off of his back, win the Big Ten championship, and you can breathe a little bit. So, they brought in Colton Hickey for this game and this offense, and I like Penn State again, plus the 4. Would not be surprised to see an outright upset, but I think Penn State in this spot, getting the points with everybody already just giving it to Oregon, I think is the play. So we've got to take one more quick break. We're going to come back, kind of rack things up, give big picture playoff thoughts. The time is flying by, but we're going to be right back here on the Denver Sports Betting Show. And welcome into the Denver Sports Betting Show. Shamlocks and Dylan here with you, and it's college football championship weekend, and we're great to have all you back with us again here. As we're doing things a little bit differently here on YouTube, things, as I mentioned a couple weeks ago, still up in the air as we are moving to some new formats, which I'm super excited about. But in the meantime, we couldn't go without giving you guys a show. So, Dylan, buddy, are you ready to go? We got to get right to it, man. We got a lot to talk about.
I'm ready for these games. I mean, I don't think I've been more excited for a show this weekend, maybe besides when it was opening weekend of college football, week 1. And now we're all the way here, conference championships. Feels like it was just yesterday we were in week 1. So
it does, man. It goes so fast. I can't believe we are finally here. We've got some unbelievable games. All these spreads, are so tight. Where it's goes to getting rid of the divisions and a lot of these big conferences where you had Michigan being 21-point favorites against Iowa and some of the ACC lopsided matches we've seen. So really tight matches, really tight spreads. We're going to get right into it because we've got a good one tonight. Rematch in the Mountain West. UNLV, Boise State, about a 4-point favorite. Total sitting around 57.5. Give me your thoughts.
I'm kind of liking UNLV here. One of the things I kind of look at always at the end of the season when you see teams who have already played is it's really hard to beat a team twice in 1 year. And UNLV is no slouch. I mean, they're 10-2. They're on a 4-game winning streak. Just blew out Nevada 38-14. I mean, you see Malik Williams leads a balanced attack for them. And they're one of the top rushing teams in the country, averaging over 250 yards on the ground per game. And Ricky White, the third, as in the go-to guy, he put up over he's long gone. He's put up over 1,000 yards this season, and I know it's at Boise, but I like UNLV being able to compete here, and I like them +4, and I don't mind taking them to get an upset here either.
Yeah, one thing to note, the first time they played this game, it was in Vegas, but more of a, that's more of a neutral site. No real home field advantage there for UNLV, as the crew from Boise came down to Vegas, and now note this game is in Boise on the blue turf. They play their conference championship home team at a home field site. And I'm kind of with you here. I think this is a true playing game. Boise will not be in and getting at large even if they lose, and we know what Boise's going to do. Right? It's pound the ball with Genty, and you look at that first matchup. The UNLV did a good job of bottling it up. He had only 33 carries, only 128 yards. His longest rush was only 16. You look at the head coach, Odom of UNLV. He is a defensive coach that can scheme to stop what that team does well, and it's obviously run the football with Genty. And then on the offensive side of the ball, Brendan Marion in the go-go offense. You mentioned Ricky White, one of the best wide receivers in the country. He's the best coach on the field. These are some rumors about him. That's the only thing I worry about. That's the thing when you get in the bowl season, conference championship season, obviously the coaching carousel gets the turn. Sometimes these coaches get looks, and you wonder how focused they are, as he's been rumored to maybe go to Wisconsin as the OC there. But he's the best coach on the field. And you mentioned Malik Williams, too. Remember, the first time they played, this started UNLV. They started the season with Saluka at quarterback. And, he was only starting his 5th game, and now he's got pretty much a full season under his belt. And their only loss outside of the Boise game was the loss to Syracuse. And we saw the points that they can put up. And in overtime, by the way, as well, too. So, and when you mentioned Ricky White, too, he's had 4 punt blocks this year, which is crazy. And it's you're starting to see some of these guys put their best athletes out there on these special teams. Mm-hmm. That could be a difference maker. So maybe he gets a punt block, but I'm with you. I like UNLV. I think this is going to be a really tight game. I see even some 4.5 outs there. So if you can get 4.5, it wouldn't be shocked to see an upset. I think this is a really tight game, and I'll take UNLV there with you +4.
Yeah, and also one more thing, just the trends. I mean, Boise, they haven't covered in 6 of the last 7. UNLV has been amazing on the road. They've won their last 8 road games, and I think this is a good spot for them.
So agree there on the Rebels. Let's keep it moving. We got to go next game. We're going to Saturday. Once the Power 4 boys get rolling, it's Iowa State and ASU in Jerry World. This game was around 2.5. Now I was hoping for a 3 with Iowa State, and now I'm seeing about 1.5. I don't think we're going to get that 3. Starting off with Arizona State, they've been kind of the surprise team in the Big 12 as they were picked last. They were 3-9 last year. So hats off to Kenny Dillingham, who has done an incredible job taking this team to 10-2 in the Big 12. But they have been they've been playing these games. They're 6-1 in the one possession games. And eventually that's got to regress a little bit. Levitt's been great at QB. We know what ASU is going to do. Smash mouth with Scadaboo at running back. But the big loss for Arizona State is no Jordan Tyson. I think that is huge in this game with him being out. 75 catches this year, 1,100 yards, 10 TDs. That is gone. That is a lot of production. That's more than the rest of the receivers combined. So I think that's going to be big because if you talk about Iowa State and Matt Campbell, and he gets credit for being a good coach. We think he is a good coach. I think he's okay, but in these big time games, he does seem to get a little bit tight, but he does have that coaching advantage and the experience over Dillingham. And I think there's a perception of Iowa State, they play outdoors, they play in Ames, and everybody kind of lumps them in just another team in the Midwest like Iowa, Wisconsin, but they've got speed on the outside. You look at receiver, both Higgins and Noel, only team in the country to have 2 receivers over 1,000 yards. So I think everybody is just kind of written Iowa State off. They were kind of written off, and after those 2 losses to Texas Tech and Kansas. But now they're back with a chance to get themselves in the playoffs, and I think Iowa State gets it done here. I like them plus, like I said, plus the 1.5, plus the 2. I think they can win the game outright, but I'll take Iowa State in the points.
Yeah, I'm on the opposite side here. I kind of like Arizona State here. I mean, they've won 5 straight. Like you said, Dillingham has this team clicking. Sam Levitt's been great. To me, the X factor is going to be Scadaboo, racked up nearly 1,400 rushing yards, and they thrive on the ground, Arizona State. And I think that matches up well against the Iowa State defense that ranks 96th in rushing yards allowed. And Iowa State leans on their pass game. Like you said, Higgins and Jalen Noel, 2 1,000-yard receivers, but their offense has been inconsistent on early downs, and I think that's where Arizona State's defense really has to make things tough. And I think if they do that, we're going to see Iowa State struggle here on offense, maybe sputter out a little, get a few 3-and-outs, and we'll see Arizona just keep pounding the rock, draining the clock, and scoring when they get the opportunities. And I'm going to take Arizona State -1 here, but I'm also looking at the under. Both these teams have strong defenses. It was so much on the line. Feels like one of those grinded out one-possession games that you were talking about. So.
Yeah, I just think, I think the being indoors on the fast track really helps this Iowa State team. And they'll be playing before the sun is in their eyes, too, there in Jerry World. This is an early kick, 11 a.m. start. They're local time, so they won't have to deal with that. But, again, all these games, as we talked about at the top, are going to be super, super competitive. We don't see those big spreads. So I still lean to Iowa. Again, not one of my stronger plays, but I do think Iowa State could pull the upset here. All these games, like I said, they're all kind of coin flippy.
All close, yeah, all coin flippy. I mean, either team could win any of these games. I feel like you said, it's no like Purdue, Michigan we saw 2 years ago, or Michigan, Iowa.
Yeah, I mean, every year, Ohio State, Wisconsin the one year when it was 50-7 or whatever it is. I mean. We've had some boring conference championship games, which now it'll be interesting to see. With the playoffs, with the expansion. I don't think enjoy this college conference championship weekend while it lasts, because I picture these going away here soon with the bigger expanded field now, and it's not a true. Some of these aren't really true, as we'll get to talk about with the SEC and the Big Ten. Teams are already in the playoffs, so it's an advantage as we've heard about the playoff discussion of some of these teams having the chance to sit at home and rest while these teams get to go in and play, maybe for some seeding, maybe for some home field. But I think the days of these conference championship games are numbered.
Yeah, I agree. I mean, you see, just some of these teams like Tennessee didn't make it. They're a lock for the playoff because they don't have to play in the conference championship game. And it's also you see like this SMU Alabama situation. SMU loses. Do you punish SMU for making their conference championship game when Alabama couldn't even make it?
But we'll get to that game. We'll get to that game. We got to keep it moving here because we still got 3 more games to talk about. So the SEC, it just means more. Texas and UGA. Another rematch. Texas minus 2.5. There's some juice threes out there on Georgia over under 50. Your thoughts?
Like I said earlier, it's kind of the same situation I was with UNLV and Boise. It's hard to beat a team twice in 1 year. Texas has found the rhythm, especially a team as good as Texas, and they found the rhythm, especially in the run game. Defense has been lights out. Sarkisian has had weeks to repair. I think the Longhorns are going to be better equipped this time around, especially in the red zone. I expect Sarkisian to mix in Arch Manning. I think his mobility adds a whole new dimension to their offense. I mean, you saw him flash that potential versus Texas A&M as a runner, and I think that could help solve some of the inefficiency issues they've had so far throughout the season. And I think that's going to be like huge, just getting him involved in the game, him coming in on like 3rd down and 3, 3rd down and 4, getting a 3-4 yard run. I think it's going to be super important. I think Texas wins here versus Georgia.
Well, man, like I said, all these, I took the dogs. I took Georgia plus. I got the 3 out there because again, over under 50. I think this is going to be low scoring. I'd lean under as well too. So I think getting those points are at a premium if you can get the 3. And let's not look ahead line before last weekend. Georgia was favored minus 1.5. Now you're seeing this line flip to 2.5, 3 just because of that Georgia Tech game. And I think when we talk about Georgia and Kirby, he has a way of motivating these guys to get ready, like lighting a fire. We've seen it time and again. I want to go into this game a little bit deeper before I give more of my explanations here, but we do have to take one quick break. We're going to come back. We still got ACC and Big Ten to talk about, but we're going to be right back here on the Denver Sports Betting Show. Quick break. And we are back on the Denver Sports Betting Show, brought to you by our friends at CD's Wings. And we are talking the SEC game here, and I want to get back to what I was talking about with Georgia here. Like I said, going into that game, they made a big deal last week about Georgia obviously giving up the points against UMass, looked a little unfocused, and then in the game they really probably could have lost against Georgia Tech. But all credit goes to Buster Faulkner, who had a great game plan for Georgia Tech. Run the football, controlled the ball. He'll be a hot name as a head coach, or maybe even a big time as an OC position. But they talked about it in the game as how he was on the staff with Kirby, and he knows how to beat the dogs. And that's why I was on Georgia Tech getting the points. But I think that we already saw Georgia go into Texas and beat them pretty badly in Austin. And you mentioned Arch Manning maybe coming in. That game last week for Texas against A&M, I was surprised to see how well they handled that Texas A&M defensive line. But Ewers still doesn't. I mean, he's still not 100%. Doesn't look right. Had the pick 6. We know Beck has made plenty of mistakes here too, throwing some interceptions. And the concern for me is the drops of some of these Georgia receivers. We saw it. The drops in the Georgia Tech game. Georgia leads